Well, we've had a pretty decent off-season break here at Triax, sort of had a bit of an extended time away from the podcast, but it's day one of the podcast pre-season training here, and all three of us are back. And it's an absolute pleasure to see Damo and Sean. Firstly, a big welcome to you, Sean. Haven't seen you for a while. What's going on with you?
Yeah, it has been a while, boys, and I do apologise for my recent absence, but been a bit busy with uni. Had exams the last few weeks, but they're all done and dusted now, which is a big relief. So I've made my long-awaited return, boys. I'm here. I'm back. The podcast is back. The day has been saved, and we're good to go, boys, I reckon.
Have a look at it. And Damo, a big welcome to you. Can you top that, Damo? Your surroundings, though, are very interesting for the people watching it on YouTube. Where are you?
Yeah, I'm in the new Triax training center that we've got set up here. We've got the gym set up that we're going to open up to the public soon. But yeah, no, I can't say that I've got as much energy and excitement as Sean's return. I was on the club imposed hiatus, from the podcast, and now they've let me back in. But Shawnee, he's come back fit and firing.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I'm not sure what would be the podcast equivalent of a yo-yo or a beep test or a time trial, you reckon? Because I think Sean's doing well early.
Well, I wouldn't get too ahead of myself. One of those people that fires early and then might hit the wall pretty soon.
Oh, yeah.
We'll see how we go, boys.
The pace setter at the start of the time trial, and then sort of just drifts back towards the back.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, once we get him off script, we'll see how good he's going today.
Yeah, it's good. That's a great call, Damo. That's a great call. And actually, so for the people who get on YouTube, Damo's wearing a really nice piece of kit. Do you want to explain for the people listening, Damo, what you've got on?
This is a Mark Viduka. It's just a T-shirt. It's actually by this place called Football Club up in Sydney. They do like retro Socceroos and Australian soccer shirts and jerseys. So check them out if you're keen.
Mate, it looks absolutely outstanding. It's sort of the early 2000s sort of vibe, isn't it? It's really good.
Yeah, the old away kit.
Yeah, exactly right. Now, we will touch on where Damo is broadcasting from in a sec, because that's some pretty interesting, exciting news that we'll talk about in due course. But maybe, boys, you want to give a catch-up as to what we've been doing for the last few weeks and where we've been at. So, Sean, you want to kick us off? What you've been doing?
Yeah, I guess as I mentioned, just uni exams for me pretty much. So that's kept me busy for the most part. We started back training at Frankston 3 weeks ago, maybe. I think this is our fourth week. So we had 2 weeks of trialing players, and then some of them have stayed on. And then our main group, this is our second week back. So back in the swing of things, it felt like the season was cut short just a few weeks ago, but we're back already, which is good. It's nice being out in the sunshine again and being around the group. So yeah, that's what's keeping me busy lately. How about you, Damo?
Yeah, it's been fairly quiet for me lately. Obviously, the more sub-elite level of footy that I work at hasn't gone back yet, so a bit of time off there, and finished up at the gym that I was working at. So I've really just been doing more of the 9 to 5 sort of stuff, and training a handful of sort of private clients here and there in the gym here that I've set up at my place. Outside of that, no, not too much. Just sort of on the hunt for that next role or position, and just ticking over. I know Rob's got some exciting news. He's been pretty busy in the break.
Yeah, absolutely, Damo. It hasn't been too dissimilar to what I've been doing. Doing a PhD, just being the emotional support for Triax and the pillar of stability for you two. Just re-signed or back with the Storm again, which is good for another year. So, which is really good. So we're basically 3 weeks in the preseason now. So Storm preseasons are pretty good. They're nice and thorough. with the volume and content. So we're just working our way through that at the moment. So it's good to be back, or I guess I never left really. So it's pretty good, but it's better to see you boys as well, because it's when you get caught up in your own little world, you sort of forget about what else is going on. So it's always good to talk to you two and really get the piss taken out of me, which is nice.
Yeah, I heard there were some pretty extensive talks at the negotiation table for you, weren't there, Rob, before you put pen to paper? I heard you had a little bit of a holdout, and you weren't too happy with the Storm brass, and you wanted more cash and this sort of thing. And a bit of back and forth there.
I heard he got Ricky Nixon in as his agent to get that extra cash up.
Too.
It's good, boys. It's very good. No, it's just all good things take time, Sean, and so it's good to come to an agreement. And it's an absolute pleasure to be there again. It's a great organisation and probably the best in Australia. So more than happy to go around again there, mate, in the purple, which is good. It suits me, I reckon.
Yeah, no, it's great news, Rob. But we're very happy for you.
Oh, thanks, Sean. Thanks, mate. It's a very sincere comment from you. All right, so let's move on from that. So what we will say from the start is a few exciting things that are going to happen. But the first one, Damo, do you want to talk about your facility you've got going on there at the moment?
Yeah, so I touched on it earlier, but I sort of decided at the back end of the COVID lockdown that it wouldn't be the worst idea to set up somewhere for Triax and myself to have clients come around and train, and for myself. So I've turned the lovely garage at my place into a gym. So I got a full power rack, trap bar, barbells, a heap of weights, got some dumbbells coming in as well. So it's been hard with the trade embargoes and the lockouts at the docks. So I've been waiting on equipment for a while, but it's up and running. So start of December, sort of, will be advertising, and there'll be some stuff pop up on the Triax socials about that and how to contact us if you want to come and train there. But also there's a few videos on our YouTube channel of just what it's looking like and the progress of the setup here, which there'll be another video sort of popped up in the next couple of days, because a fair bit of the equipment just arrived today. So we're pretty much up and ready to go here.
I heard you put Rob through the ringer a couple of weeks ago, didn't you, Damo?
I did, yeah. We had to test out the facility to see if it could handle the heavy lifting, the floor in particular. And Rob was just throwing steel like no tomorrow. I'm not sure how he was the next day, but his form's pretty good, Rob, for someone that doesn't lift very often.
Look, the only thing I threw, mate, was probably my back. I reckon I threw my back out on that deadlift off the ground. I haven't done one of them before, so it was actually really good to go give it a bit of a workout. Now Damo's obviously improved. He's got the rack there and a lot of other accessories, the plates, trap bar. So he's got plenty of stuff out there, and it's basically all you need. You got the bench as well, plenty of resistance bands and booty bands for Sean there as well, which he loves to get stuck into. So. It was pretty good to go out there, and it's a nice little sweat box too, the garage. So if you can, if you want to lose a bit of fluid as well, then you can definitely pump some weight out there. Thanks very much. Yeah, it's good shit, Sean. Fuck with. Yeah, but anyway, we'll as Damo has said, we'll have some more information around that to come once. He's fitted it out and ran the rule over it as well. So Sean might have to go out there and do some beachies as well, just to really give it the tick of approval, the old the buys, the flies, and the tries. And we'll see how we go, Damo.
Yeah. It's a must. Any person that comes in has to do a beachy set to finish off. It's part of the membership and the training here.
Yeah, absolutely.
You better install a mirror in there then, Damo, I think.
All right, well, okay, let's move on. Okay, so the topic of this podcast, so we got all the catch up and the rubbish out of the way, and we've got a lot of other rubbish to come, mainly from me. So what we've seen in sport, boys, basically the past couple of months, with the end of seasons and the start of seasons and the higher vaccine rollouts for COVID-19, is there's a lot of vaccine mandates. There's a lot of organisations that are enforcing vaccines and I guess not making, but stating that players need to have a vaccine in order to compete, train, do all that sort of stuff as well. So the AFL, we've seen Liam Jones retire as a result of this directly. We've seen a few other holdouts and things in AFLW as well. So there's a bit going on with vaccine mandates in sport. And so it sort of gave a bit of an idea as to what a podcast topic could be. And I know that Sean has shared a lot of stuff surrounding his mental health, which has been really good. And I thought maybe I should probably share some of my experiences with my physical health and mental as well, I guess, since getting the Pfizer vaccine. So if it's okay with you boys, I reckon I'll share my story.
Yeah, take the floor, Rob. It's
me time here from Rob.
It is me time. Yeah, yeah. It is. And look, this story, I will say, this is in jest as well. I have no idea. I don't care. Like, I'm not pro-vax, I'm anti-vax. I'm do whatever you want to do. It's your body, your rules. I'm just going to share my experiences surrounding my vaccination. So it's pretty tough to discuss, and I'll cop a lot of ridicule for it. And I know both of you know about this, and my housemates know about this, my family know about this, but not many other people do. So we'll start from the top. I booked in to get myself a Pfizer jab at probably about, it must be a couple of months ago now. And when the opportunity came to enroll, I did. I took it upon myself. I have no issues with vaccines, and obviously coming from a science background, I trust that there's a lot of science involved, so I wasn't against any of that. So I booked in and, rolled up to Sandown Racecourse, just hearing the echoes of the galloping thoroughbreds across the track. And I thought, oh, geez, this is a good place to get a jab. Went to the front desk, checked in, sat at the little cubicle waiting area. And, I was pretty good. I wasn't too bad with the process. I didn't really care too much about getting a jab. I don't have a fear of needles, any of that stuff. So, sat down and
it's a very long walk into Sandown, isn't it? You feel like, I reckon you walk like K and a half at least before you get to the little desk.
Yeah, it's true, because they herd you out like it's like when you go to Movie World in peak time and you're trying to get on a roller coaster. You know how they stagnate and stagger the line? That's what it's like when you get your jab. Or Disneyland or whatever. There's no express pass. Well, actually, no, there is an express pass, because my sister took her newborn there and they took her to the front of the queue. So apparently that's an express pass. But
there you go.
And like Sean said, you get to Sandown and you sort of wade through people. But when I went there was no queue, fortunately, which was good. Anyway, so I sit down in the chair, and the lovely nurse, she says, blah, blah, Pfizer, all that sort of stuff, ticking it off and that. And then she reads out the symptoms, or no, the potential side effects of a jab for our age group. So Sean, Damo, and I, all male, all between 25 and 30. And so she says, oh, look, here there's a potential side effect of myocarditis or pericarditis. And I was like, oh yeah, whatever, blah, blah. I didn't really think too much of it. Knew that it was some sort of inflammation surrounding the heart, whatever, blah, blah. Anyway, so I got the jab stuck in the arm. She injected it, all that sort of stuff, all good. And then you have to go sit in the waiting area for 15 minutes, like all the post-jab waiting area. You sit down there and they basically just keep an eye on you, make sure you don't die or faint or any of that sort of stuff. Anyway, that's when it started. That's when I started to get some sort of anxiety. I actually had a panic attack in the post-jab waiting area. I was sitting there, and as soon as the nurse said myocarditis and pericarditis, I knew about it and just sat there thinking, oh my God, I'm going to get it. I'm going to get it. And it just started this spiraling of, I'm in trouble here. I was just sitting there, and I had a book and stuff. And I'm sitting there going, oh God, what's going to happen? Blah, blah.
They read you your rights, didn't they, Rob? They read you your rights. That's what I thought when you're going in there and you're like, oh yeah, about all the side effects and potential things. But when they specifically say your gender and age group, I sort of was thinking the same thing. I'm like, oh, of course it's the one time it's you that are going to be in that demographic. Yes. I was a little bit the same after mine, sitting there going, oh, imagine that if you drop dead from this vaccine. I've done worse things in my life.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't, and we'll touch on your Thailand exploits in a different episode. But and Damo's right. And so I was sitting there going, like, what happens if I've got this? Or whatever. And I've had like panic attacks before, and they only sort of last maybe like 15 minutes or so. So I knew this was one. And anyway, you get up after your 15 minutes and I walked to the car and felt okay and drove home. And I knew that the side effect would be I have a sore arm. I had no problem with that whatsoever. That was fine. But when I got home, I did eventually get the sore arm, but then I also got like this chest discomfort. And I'm thinking, is this in my head that I've manufactured this, or is this actually a real symptom of, either getting the jab or whatnot? And it wasn't like I had trouble breathing, but I just felt like there was just discomfort, like sort of middle of your chest, basically between the two pecs. That's where it sort of felt like, and it was just this nagging discomfort. I was like, what is this? And the more I thought about it, the more I thought, oh, geez, I got myocarditis, I got pericarditis, whatever. Started looking up the symptoms, started, going down the rabbit hole that is Twitter for vaccines and, Twitter for anything else sort of scientific. And so I started, having this real, basically talk myself into another panic attack.
That's where you do yourself in, I reckon. As soon as you look up the symptoms and it just it's that confirmation bias. Like you just you're finding the evidence to support what you're already thinking, and then it just unravels even more.
Yeah, mate, and that's exactly what happened. And you read this stuff and think, I'm just spiraling myself into another mental episode here of, thinking, oh, I'm in trouble, blah, blah, blah. And, I'm reading, some nuffy on Twitter who reckons he knows all the answers and he's done his own, 3 phases of studies on vaccines. And, sure enough, you buy into it. Like after a while, like when you feel like, you connect the dots, you're like, oh, I've got this, I've got that. You sort of connect the dots and think, oh, I'm going to buy into this and get worse. And so I rang the old girl and I said, Mum, this is what's happened, blah, blah, I feel a bit of discomfort. I'm basically having shortness of breath because I'm panicking about it. And she's just like, just go see the doctor. That's the best thing you can do. Just book in, like all good parents say. And thanks, Carol. So booked in the GP, haven't been to a GP in 10 years. Booked in and just told him and said, having some discomfort and, in the chest, whatever, had, first dose of Pfizer. And he's like, check my breathing. He's like, oh, there's nothing wrong with your breathing, blah, blah, blah. But we'll get you checked out. We'll, have a blood test, ECG, and a chest X-ray. And, obviously remember doing ECGs back in the degree days. So there was no issues there. Had to lie down to get the blood taken out because I was a little bit sort of panicky about that. And then, still had this discomfort a few days later and got the results back from the doctor, went and saw him. He said, mate, there's no issues at all. No, you're fine. There's no problems. But he's like, have you still got this discomfort? And I did. I still had it at this point. I said, yeah, doc, it's still there, blah, blah. And he says to me, he's like, I think this sounds muscular or structural. I said, I don't think it's got anything to do with the vaccine. And he's like, have you been doing any heavy lifting lately? And I'm thinking, oh, no. I said, I haven't done any upper body beachy weights for a while.
We know that's the only lifting you do.
Yeah, exactly. I said, I haven't done any beachies for a while. And I'm thinking, it's like, have you lifted heavy, if you know anything strenuous or whatever? And I said to him, nah, not really. And he's like, oh, well, look, I reckon this will subside. Come back to see me. If there's no improvement, come back to see me in a week and we'll look further. Anyway, I get back to the car and I'm sitting in the car and I'm thinking, oh, shit. I think I realize what's happened here. The day before I got the Pfizer jab, I started my first session of yoga. And so what had happened was, and what I now know is that the yoga sessions, I was obviously putting my upper body, all that sort of stuff in different positions that I had been into, different postures, etc. There was actually of the effects of the yoga that had given me the chest discomfort because I hadn't actually used it. And so I'd done the yoga session before. I'd done the yoga session a few days after. And so the reason why I wasn't going away was because I kept doing it because it was good, mentally and all that sort of stuff. But I wasn't giving my body a chance to recover after it either, all the new different postures. And then when I thought about it, I typed it into Google, and then sure enough, this is a common occurrence. Like, your chest or whatever, they have a bit of discomfort after you do yoga because it's, different postures or whatnot. And I'm thinking, they're thinking, you idiot. You absolute idiot. You've mistaken a myocarditis and pericarditis for DOMs of doing fucking yoga. And so I'm thinking, what the fuck, boys? What the fuck? So that's my story. So
the best
and yoga don't mix.
The best thing is you're doing the yoga to probably help reduce your anxiety, and it's increasing it tenfold.
Yes, yes, and that's exactly what was happening. Was that I was like, fuck, like that's what I put myself through this because of that.
Mate, I remember you saying to me as well, like I reckon maybe a week before this happened, you were like, yeah, I started doing some yoga. Like I did yoga yesterday, I did it today, I'm probably gonna do something tomorrow. And you were just like, it was like the elixir of life for you. And this yoga would just like bring you all this like mental clarity, and then it's just been your complete undoing.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much.
I do remember because you asked me, because when I started at Center of Strength and Wellness, they do yoga and Pilates. So part of me starting was I had to trial each of the things to see, you know, that I could recommend it or make a comment on it. And I'd never done yoga before either. And it was very relaxing, and the anxiety and your stress and everything, I thought it actually worked. But similar to you, I reckon it's the sorest I've been after any exercise other than the half marathon in about the last 2 years, I reckon, because you get in these awkward, weird positions. You got to control your breathing and these really slow, long breaths and stuff. And yeah, like I was similar, but I didn't go back for 10 times in the same week. I didn't get that addiction to the yoga like you, Rob.
Yes. So that was my initial experience. And the funny part is that my housemate, Jonesy, I'll give him a shout out. You'll love that. He's a regular avid listener, Jonesy. Anyway, he hadn't had his Pfizer jab yet. And so I didn't want to freak him out to say that I'd had these, symptoms or whatever, because he was just about to get it. And so I was doing all this stuff like backdooring, sort of, just disappearing outside the house and stuff, because obviously we're still in lockdown. And so I was getting all these tests done and whatever. And so I didn't tell him any of this stuff until he came home one night after I'd been given all the all clear. And he's like, geez, I knew there was something up with you. I knew you were just a bit, he's like, I thought we'd done something to you. I thought, you had a problem with this. And I was like, no, Jones, I just sat in my room, mate, basically every day having anxiety attacks because I thought I had myocarditis. And it was because I was doing fucking yoga. So,
I think the truth is you're heading out on a few Tinder dates and didn't want him to know. But
come on. No, well, that's what he thought. Because, I'd go out in the middle of the day or whatever, getting tests or go to the doctor or whatever, or on the phone to mum just trying to get me through it or whatever. So, yeah, that was the experience. But I think, using that story, and obviously I'm going to cop a lot of ridicule to come, which is fair enough. But I guess it shows the negatives of being so accessible in social media and news now about how accessible that info is and how much it can get to you and make you anxious or whatever. Because, when we all got our jabs in primary school or whatever, like nobody would have batted an eyelid. Like, you get the tetanus shot now, or Sean had to get jabs because obviously, being allied health professional, you have to have, certain jabs. And I bet he wouldn't have batted an eyelid to get, your Hep A's or whatever it is, tetanus. Like, but for this jab and, all the rigmarole around it, there's a lot more scrutiny and makes you feel more anxious, I reckon. Well, maybe that's just me speaking anyway.
Yeah, I suppose like everyone can now broadcast their opinion to the masses, regardless of whether they realize it or not. But just like something like a news channel profile on social media, they often have a bunch of followers and a bunch of comments, and I think it just takes like one little comment, like we were talking about before, one little comment to sort of share a similar thought or to share a similar worry that you might have, and it just feeds it and it helps it grow a little bit, which is the concerning thing. Whereas, as you said, like 10, 15 years ago, like people probably have those opinions, but you wouldn't hear about it. So it sort of comes and goes pretty easily.
Yeah, 100%.
I think the thing as well with old Dr. Google, you type it in there and generally the most extreme side effects or symptoms are always the ones that are at the top. And so if you're trying to like self-diagnose an injury or some sort of symptoms, and straight away it's going to automatically like jump to the worst case. Whereas in your case, it was just that you'd done yoga and you're a bit sore, whereas you thought you had, some sort of heart condition. So it is, you have to be careful. But I can see at the same time with COVID, like these other vaccinations that we take, so like tetanus and hepatitis, like they've been around for a long time. They've been tested for many, many years, and it's sort of part and parcel. But again, at the same time, no one bats an eyelid when a newborn gets their vaccinations that have sort of been around, and that's a young child that you're sort of putting at risk, and there is risks that there might be side effects. So like that social media presence, the 15 people that listen to our podcast might be swayed to get a jab now.
Yeah, well, yeah, and obviously everybody has the right to the choice of their own body. I'm not, promoting vaccines or not, disregarding them either. But I'm just, sort of saying about how it's very interesting, and you have to be very selective as to where you get your information from and who you listen to, because like especially medical stuff. Like if this person hasn't got the education or the background in it, then you shouldn't be listening to them. And that's what can happen. Apparently, is everybody should be entitled to their opinion, but you need to know where the opinion is coming from and whether that's an educated one as well. I think that's a massive lesson out of all of this, if there is one.
Yeah, you need to have a decent filter, and it doesn't just apply to like medical stuff. Like there's so much nutrition misinformation or different opinions out there, even what we do with like fitness and that sort of thing. So anything, I think, like what I've noticed is anything that someone sort of partakes in themselves is like what they tend to have like opinions on. Like most people exercise, like everyone eats food, but like no one's spreading misinformation about like being an accountant, because not everyone does that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I think it's like it's that exact and inexact practices, I guess, like within accounting, like the numbers they got to add up to what they add up to, whereas fitness and nutrition and the vaccine reaction, like I had a sore arm. Some people were, vomiting and had like flu-like symptoms from the vaccine. So it's different for everyone. And I guess that's the same with us in the fitness industry, and a lot of people on social media will put up there, what we might say gimmicky methods and stuff like that. And nutrition's the same, but that's because what we do is not an exact science. There's not one answer to the one problem. So you just got to be able to filter that out, as you said.
Yeah, 100% agree. And I think that's a good sort of lesson for anyone out there. It's just, like we all got told. Remember, we got told at uni when you're looking up an article on the library sort of search, make sure you always click peer reviewed, because they're the best and they've actually gone through scrutiny and been checked. I think that maybe we should do something like that, with our own heads for Twitter or whatever it might be, Facebook, LinkedIn. Sean's pretty big on Reddit, so he loves answering a few questions on there. So, like you just got to make sure that you fact check, or internally just fact check all the information you're getting as well. And I think that's the idea, is to think critically. Like I think what's interesting is like Instagram and Facebook, and instead of best of people's lives, is that you can sort of masquerades all that stuff. So I reckon it sort of diminishes the ability to think, critically, like someone's showing that aspect of their life and it's positive, and it may not be that you only see that. So I think that, that skill is highly underrated and essential in the current day and age. All right, boys. Well, that's all we've got really time for today. I've got to go back to the GP and get a checkup for my chest health. I'm just taking the piss, obviously. But if you enjoyed the podcast today, then make sure you help us out. Like, subscribe, do all the good stuff via Spotify, YouTube, all the good things there. But it's really good to see Damo and Sean and reconnect the Tri-X brand, boys. It's great to see you.
You too, Rob.
It's been a while, hasn't it?
Yeah, sure. It sure has, but
we're off to a good start. Pre-season, week 1, session 1. We're ticking all the boxes. I reckon we're good, boys. We're looking good.
That's good, Sean.
We're red hot in that 2K.
So you always need blokes like Sean in a pre-season always talk up everything. Those blokes in a pre-season drill that just pump up everything. Oh, boys, boys, halfway there, over the hill, boys, come on, we've got it. And I'm just like, oh, it's the same thing every week. But that's I digress. That's working in sport, isn't it?
It is, mate. That is. It's what you got to do sometimes. It's all it's a mental battle half the time. Yeah,
exactly right. I reckon that might be the topic of a future podcast as well, is buzzwords in team sports and year on year and where they come from. I reckon that'll be a good podcast. All right. So, but leading on into our next topic for the podcast will be about, again, it's a bit of me time as well. I've been off social media for a couple of months now. So I've been off Facebook and Instagram. So, I'll talk a bit about that and how I sort of felt being off it too. So there's a bit going on, but that'll about sum it up for today. So thank you for your time, Damo and Sean. Damo, really excited to see you, Jim, in the flesh. And I reckon we might do a podcast out there as well one day when it's set up.
On site,
all of us together for the first time.
unreal stuff. Well, thanks, Rob. Thanks for sharing your story and putting it out in the limelight. I'm sure if any of the Storm boys are listening to this podcast, you might cop a bit of flack at training during the week.
Maybe. I don't think they've discovered it yet, but we'll see. So a shout out. Thank you to you, Sean. Good to see you too, mate.
Yeah, thanks, boys.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. And thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time on the DeakHeads. Fuck me. We'll see you next time on the DeakHeads podcast. Bye for now.